I've never really understood why people love the Flying Geese quilt block so much. I've made them a few times for different quilts, but they just didn't appeal to me. So last quarter, when I was picking the block challenge for the Quilters Play Space community that I run, I decided to pick Flying Geese. I wanted to see if I could take a block that I didn't really like that much and end up making something that I really loved. Or if I would just find them just as boring after the challenge was over. I was also super curious to see what the other members of the play space would make for the monthly challenge as well. No two blocks looked anything alike, so I'll show you a few of them at the end of this video. I was recording a tutorial about how to make a block book around the time that I was doing this challenge, and I needed two 14.5-inch square blocks for the front and back cover of the block book that I would connect together with a 4-inch spine. I decided to use this monthly challenge block to make the covers that I needed. I'll link to a full tutorial on how you can make a block book at the end of this video. I was working on the Luminary Glow Up pattern at the time and had a pile of beautiful triangle scraps left over from Faughnan's woven handloom fabric that were too big to throw away, but too small to do much with. So I decided to use these to make a flock of rainbow geese. Because they were small and irregularly shaped, I decided to do Improv flying geese. I selected a lightweight denim scrap from my stash and then had to figure out how to make an Improv flying geese block. I played around a bit and settled on this method. Let me show you how I did it. So first you're going to take one of your scraps. This is a triangle, and I noticed that the most of my scraps were 4 inches or less across the bottom longest edge from here to here. And so you want to add at least 1 extra inch onto your background strip that we're going to cut to make these. I'm going to cut a 5-inch strip out of my background fabric. And I'm not really that worried about if it's not exactly perfectly straight, even though that did turn out really well, because I know that it's going to be improv and I'm going to be trimming these anyway, so not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to take this triangle that we were going to work with, and I'm going to trim off that little tail there because I don't want it to be, I want the bottom to be exactly straight. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this on here, and then I am going to use that to figure out how much of this to trim. So what I'm doing is I'm putting it on there, and then I am trimming with about an extra 1/4 inch from the point to my cut line. So if I put my ruler on, that'll let me see through. So there's about a 1/4 inch. So make sure that's at a 1/4 inch, and then I make sure that the bottom of the fabric is going straight across the line. And then I just cut there. That gives me a little extra leeway. So that's more than I need, but it's good. Okay, so I start there. And now the first thing I do, I just place it somewhere on there. I'm improving these, so I don't care if they're centered or not. And then I'm going to just cut right along one side of the fabric, like this, and I cut off a couple of little strings, no big deal. I'm just gonna take those and set them there. And then on this side, leaving that triangle on exactly. Now this one has a little bit of a cut here, so I'm actually going to cut through both layers of fabric, and I have a seam there. I don't care if that shows up. If you don't want it there, then cut inside of that seam to get rid of it. It's just a little thread line, and it won't bother me if it shows up in the end. So I'm gonna trim the edge off a little bit though, just so that I could get rid of that little edge, the bottom piece, to make sure the seam worked. So now we have this piece, this piece, this piece, and then we have an extra denim piece that, or background piece, whatever you're using, that I'll just throw to the side that I don't need. So these are improv. There's probably a better way to do it, but this is how I've been doing it. So first I take this part with the extra corner cut off, and because of how I cut them, this isn't going to be a perfect seam when we fold it over. And so because of this little triangle edge down here, I actually like to move this down a little bit so that that point is there. I know it might not make sense conceptually, but this is how it works. So now I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch there. Helps if I turn my sewing machine on. Okay, so now I've got this piece. I'm going to press it. All right, so now you can see this line is not straight across on either side, okay? And that's gonna happen when you do it the way that I'm showing you. And now I'm gonna take this piece and I'm gonna put it here as well, and I'm going to fold over. Now I like to match up the bottom edge here and have this top corner overlapping up top, because that'll give us a little bit more margin at the top of the point of the triangle. So I'm going to sew that one on. So I'm going to go and iron this. So now you can see I have my flying geese, my Improv flying geese, and it's got some edges that need to be trimmed. So now what I'm doing is I like to start with the bottom, and I like to trim that straight across the edge there without cutting off. I want to try not to cut much of that actual triangle, the green geese. The next thing I'm going to trim is the top here. And again, I want to take this and I want to have at least 1/4 inch from here to the top. I do actually trim that pretty close to 1/4 inch because I want that to match up. I'm going to use the 1/4 inch marking on my ruler when I'm doing this. So when I'm lining this up here, this point here will go right up to that 1/4 inch right there. And then I will make sure that my bottom is parallel with the lines so that this is an actual rectangle. And it's okay if it's a little bit bigger up here than 1/4 inch. You just don't want that less than 1/4 inch, or when you go to sew it, you'll sew that point off. And I want to keep that point preserved later on. All right, so that flying geese is done. So now I just need to make a lot more of these. Okay, so I've been working on these gorgeous flying geese right here, and I need to put them all together, which is great. However, I have a problem, and that problem is that I am almost out of fabric for the background. Oh, we are so close. So what I've started doing is, this is really desperate. I have all of those little triangles that were cut out from this little beautiful pink piece here. When I pieced this, I got a little blue triangle out of it. And so I've started taking these and piecing them together into itty bitty pieces. And I'm gonna sew all of these together into more fabric so that I can finish my blocks. Because I want to get 2 blocks out of this that are each 14 by 14 inches square if I can. I should be close. Stay tuned. We will see if I'm going to be able to finish these blocks or not. They're so pretty. They're so pretty. But I need to sew some more tiny little triangles together. All right, so I'm finally to the point where I have my flying geese made, and I want to make 2 14 by 14 inch blocks with these laid out. I'm thinking I might want to do it kind of like this. I'm overlapping it a bit because I know there's going to be seam allowance. I want to kind of lay it out and get a sense for if it's going to fit or not. Now this one is not as wide as the other ones. It was an early one that I made. And so I'm going to have to use a little bit of my precious, this is all the fabric I got left. We're going to see if we can do this. So I'm going to have to add a little bit of fabric to one of the sides to make this wide enough. And if that doesn't work, then I've got these little, I also have these little pieces that I've been piecing together, which came from that little triangle. Maybe I'll use these and save this in case I need a bigger piece. But I will do that when I'm putting these together. Part of me wants to do this on the corner, but another part of me knows that'll take extra fabric. So I think maybe I want to, yeah, let's just do it this way. Okay, and then do I want to go sideways like this and around? I think I want to go up and down. Let's try this. All right, so that's one. That's one if it all turns out right. So what I think I'm going to do is, it's very possible that these are going to be a little shorter because of the seam allowances in here. I feel like I'm actually going to need to use all of these just for the 14 by 14 inch block. I'm not going to lay the other one out because it's going to be the exact same thing, just maybe in the opposite direction. But I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I think I'm just going to go with it. and see how it turns out. So I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm just going to start sewing them. If I have some short pieces like this, I'll take a moment and I will make them bigger. I think that's what I'm going to do. I thought about doing them more in a circle or in other ways, but I like this layout. I think I like the color shift. I like the rainbow, how the rainbow kind of goes from the pinks all the way through to the purples and violets. So yeah, let's just go with it. All right, so now I am going to start sewing my flying geese together. And I think I want to make sure my flying geese are at least ideally 4 inches wide. So hopefully as I'm going through, if they're a lot shorter than that, we'll see, but I'm going to hope that that's the case. Okay, so now when I'm putting these together, I'm folding and matching up that line. And then in order to make sure that I don't cut off the tip of the bottom triangle, I'm actually going to sew with this one up so that I can see exactly where the threads are. So here you can see the threads go right there, they cross, and so I can easily see if I'm going to cut that tip off or not when I'm sewing. So I'll just watch for that as I sew. And I think I'm going to sew both of these at the same time, both columns, so that it's just easier and I don't have to keep using my ender and leader for this. So we'll do this. Now this one is just shy almost of 4 inches. We're going to call it close enough, but we might have to adjust a little. We'll see. Now you got to make sure you're not stretching this when you sew it, since that's biased and you could really easily stretch these out. We don't want to do that. Okay, see how nice that tip is? It's easy for me to make sure that I didn't go through it because I could see exactly where I was stitching when I stitched. And now I'm not worried about it being exactly on that point. There can be a little bit of extra blue there. If that's where it ends up, I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure I'm not cutting it off. I don't want any flat mountaintops. Flat geese, whatever you call them. See, this one has a little extra blue there above the mountaintop. That I'm fine with. I really don't care as much about that. I want to make sure my fabric is big enough, so I'm going to leave that. But if you wanted to do it traditionally, they'd probably be touching exactly, which you can do. It's totally fine. It's a design choice. I'm not as worried about that. So I'm not going to unpick anything because I think that's good enough. This one is short. So this one, I'm definitely going to need to add some more fabric on. So I'm going to take some of these extra fabric scraps that I have over here. Here's a piece that I have, and I'm just going to sew that one on right there before moving forward. I don't have a lot of this fabric left over extra, so I'm trying to be really mindful of how I use it. So I'm going to press that. And I'm going to do 4 inches. And I have this piece that I can use over here. And then I'm going to just trim the bottom of this to make sure it's aligned. And before I put that one on here, I got to do this one. This one's a little short. So how much is this one short? Quite a bit, even more. Now this one, because we added this in, we're going to want to trim it 1/4 inch from there at the bottom, just to make sure our triangle, it's a little more than 1/4 inch. So I have to decide if I'm okay with that getting, actually I'm fine with it getting cut off there. So I'm just going to leave this one the way it is and not worry about that. If this was in significantly more, I'd probably want to adjust things, but I'm not going to be that fussy about these because they are just fun to do. You know, we're improving it. None of them are perfect, and it's kind of a lot of play. So we're going to go with it. Also, can I just point out, I press these all in the same direction with the points going up because it just seemed the most intuitive and easy to remember. If they match up, then they'll nestle nice and it'll be easier to sew. So So now I've got these first 2 panels, and I'm going to continue making these. With the other colors, I'm just going to keep going down the rainbow gradient. Hopefully we'll end up around the right number of colors and geese at the end. Otherwise, I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that. Maybe I'll just use these denim extra square fabric pieces. Or if I don't have to use too much of this, I could cut a piece off of this if I need. I don't know. I really don't know what it's going to end up with. So we're just going to sew it up together and see, and then decide what to do with it afterwards if there's an issue. All right, so now I have all of my pieces ready to go. Let's lay them out. Oh yes, I'm very, very happy with that. So now what I need to do is, some of these edges are a little bit off. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to trim these to 4 inches wide each. I don't want to cut much off these edges because I don't have a lot, honestly, to cut. There's not a lot extra here, so just being careful. I'm using my ruler's lines to cut. Hopefully I can get 4 inches exactly, or pretty close. So here, this one's a little bit in. I probably should have added some extra to that because it's not quite 4. I failed to add extra fabric there. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do about that when I get to that point. For now, this one will go like this. I'll probably just honestly take a piece of scrap fabric and figure out how to make it work because I really don't want a hole to end up there. So, but I want to make the seam straighter if I can, so it'll be easier to sew together well. So just barely trimming. I'm literally stretching and manipulating the fabric to get it to cut straight where I want it to be. Not recommended for when you need a lot of accuracy, but for stuff like this where it is improv, you can always add in more fabric. You might need to add a little more there, we'll see. But you can kind of fudge things a little bit if you need to. I'm going to. It's kind of my intention with this, is it doesn't have to be perfect. And this is my play. I'm playing. And I was really lucky that these blocks all ended up the way they did, like with the right number. I didn't know if I would have enough to do a middle. So these will be a block, and then these 4 will be a block, and then this will be a middle panel that connects them. And there's technically, that one did not get down here because there wasn't room. It was already long enough, and I'm calling it good enough because I think it flows really well. I didn't plan that. I got really lucky with that. All right, so this one has some definite issues. That is not going to be a good edge to sew. So, and it's definitely not 4. So this one I am definitely going to take some extra fabric. That's what I got left. And I will add a strip right there. So let's see what we can do about fixing this edge. This is probably not going to look the nicest, but it's going to be hopefully efficient and do what I need it to do. So this is wide enough. I'm going to do it this way. I'm just lining it up. I'm going to sew this direction just because of ease. We're going to see how it goes. Not super confident in this one, but we'll see. Checking where that triangle ends right there so that I don't, sew over the triangle edge. That is a wonky seam. Seam allowance is a little short in the inner places, but we're going to call it okay. Now I'm going to press iron. Let's be honest. I'm going to iron. I'm not a presser. I'm an ironer. And then we'll trim that down to the size we need it to be. Okay, so triangle points all preserved, which is good. This is a 4-inch ruler, so I can put it right over on this edge here. And then, since I lined it up over there, I can easily trim it here. And now I have
the extra edge that I need for that. So most of that'll get hidden in a seam. Some of it'll show. It is what it is. This part up here probably should have gone a little higher. So I'll have to make sure, but it's within that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I will be okay. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit because I really don't want that showing, that raw edge there. And so I'm going to angle this in a little bit towards where that one up there is going to be. So hopefully that'll be fine and it won't be an issue. I'm not the most experienced improv person, so I'm not always the best at doing these things, but there you go. And here, this one might be a bit more tricky. I think what I'm going to do with this one is I'm actually going to seam rip a little bit of each of these seams, add it on, and then resew those seams. I'll use this beautiful seam ripper that my partner made me. This is birch bark and spruce root, and then he made this beautiful handle for me. He's a woodworker and he does amazing work. So I don't need to go very far in this, just like basically 1/4 inch. I'll go a little bit more just to make it easier to maneuver. Same thing on this end. This is probably the appropriate way to do these things. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew a piece onto that. I hate cutting from that piece because this is the biggest piece I have left, so it feels like risky to cut this off of it. And now I am going to sew this right here across, being careful not to catch any of these other fabrics in the meantime. I'm not bothering with my ender or leader, even though it means trimming threads, because I don't like to use it. Okay, so now we've got plenty here, so I'm gonna press this and iron it, and then I'll probably iron this entire seam flat here, and same thing here. And then I will sew these 2 seams, and then we'll trim that off. Let me press this quick, and I'm going to continue down that seam on this side. I'm going to backstitch a little to hold my seam. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other seam. And actually I want to use this side because I want to use this existing piece as a reference for my seam allowance. So that's the right way to fix this. I'm just usually too lazy to do that. If you want the the real truth, like this way is the fast, easy, lazy way. I shouldn't say lazy. It's efficient, good enough way. That's a much better term. Always trying to correct my internal language. And then this way, you can see now that that was pieced correctly. I'm going to press this so you can see how nice it is, and we can trim that off, and it's all fixed. That one was a perfect fix. So very happy with that. It was worth the hassle for this piece, it was for sure. Although I have zero regrets about doing it this way for this piece. Not at all a problem. It would have been a lot more work, and I don't think it would have looked that much better anyways. So happy with that. So now I get to start sewing these pieces together. I didn't press it open because it was burning my delicate little fingers. So I just pressed on top, and I'm a little afraid to look at the back. Let's see how bad it is. Oh yeah, she's all over the place. Don't care. Quilt police might get upset with me, but I'm not sewing for them, so oh well. All right, let's grab our next row.
I'll show you my final quilt block in just a moment. But first, let me show you some of the Flying Geese challenge blocks that my members made for this challenge. Kimberly Waterbury said that she hates making flying geese, but she absolutely loves the way they look. I love that flying geese are actually a part of this block, but they aren't the main attraction. And it's a really classic, beautiful quilt block. Colleen Peterson has been wanting to make a quilt coat for a long time, and this challenge finally got her to dive in. She's using the strip of infused flying geese to go down the sleeve of our jacket, and she's coordinated all of the colors with the main fabric that she's using, which is all Tula Pink Besties and True Colors fabric. And she said it was really a challenge, but she had a great time making it and is really proud of the result. I personally really love how the flying geese overlap with each other in this one, which is something I'd never seen before, but I think it's really unique and beautiful this way. Tina Robinson actually did this challenge several times, and one of the things she wanted to do was learn how to use freezer paper piecing. So I wanted to show you this block where she did that using one of Rebecca Bryan's modern triangle blocks. She said that she learned she really loved using the freezer paper piecing method because of the precision she was able to get with this block. And I just think they're so interesting how they come together in this triangle shape and how the backgrounds almost make up another row of flying geese in the opposite direction. Julie Snow said she wanted to do something other than just a normal flying geese block for this challenge and decided that she wanted to try and make them fly. Her first attempt, which I'm not showing you here, was actually a big failure, but she did not give up. Instead, she told herself that now she knows exactly what not to do, and she went on to create this beautiful curved flying geese block. And she said that now that she's figured out this technique, she can literally make flying geese fly across the surface of any quilt she's working on. And I'm so proud of her for allowing herself to try something and fail, but then keep going and learn from it. This is part of why I am so committed to helping people play and try new things before they commit to trying a new skill in a huge quilt. It's a lot less frustrating when you try something small before going big with it. Jan Harmon found this migrating geese block online and knew she had to try it. She absolutely fell in love with it and said trying new things is such a good idea. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed seeing the flying geese offset from one another. I think I personally want to try this method sometime. And finally, here's my finished Improv flying geese block. Now that it's finished, I am absolutely in love with it. Not only did I learn a new skill and gain a ton of confidence from making something that I'd never done before, but I realized that I actually enjoy making flying geese when I don't have to be so precise about it and I can do them in an improv nature. I think it adds a lot of movement and life to the block when they're not all exactly the same and they have little imperfections between them. Plus, the texture in these woven fabrics is just incredible, and I absolutely love how they look paired next to this denim. It's hard to believe that these are scraps that I almost threw away. I love them so much. It was so much fun to work on this block challenge as a community and see what everyone came up with. If you'd like to join us in doing these monthly block challenges, I'd love to invite you to become a Quilters Play Space member. You can join us using the link in the description. Not only can you join us for monthly block challenges, but you also get a new premium quilt pattern each week from our generous sponsors. And it's all for about the price of a single pattern per month. Now, if you want to see what I've done with this beautiful quilt block and how I've turned it into a block book for organizing your quilt blocks, then watch this video next and I'll show you exactly how to do it.